Hello kind people of YouTube and welcome back to another video. If you are waiting for my regular daily news update, that is coming later. I know I also said that to yesterday and didn't end up actually making one. I'm still very sorry about that. I had too much to do yesterday, but today the other video is actually coming. But I wanted to make an individual video, a separate one, to talk about this because I figured it was of a lot of interest to a lot of my subscribers. And I just wanted to have it separately. In this video, I want to read the Q3 2018 XRP market report from Ripple, directly published by the company, by Corey Johnson and Miguel Vias. I probably mispronounced that name, very sorry about that. I always mispronounce names. This, of course, they are releasing these reports every 3 months for every quarter, and this gives us insights into what is happening with Ripple and with XRP that we do not get by just watching the news or keeping up with market movements. And this report in particular was very, very interesting to me. So I just want to go through it, read it with you guys, talk about it for a moment, and that's gonna be it for this video. Before I forget it, if you like these kind of videos, if you wanna get these daily news updates with a bit of a focus on XRP, but I do talk about other coins as well, make sure to subscribe. And if you like my videos, there are a million ways to support them in the description, including a Patreon, where you could support me for $1 or $3 a month. That is much appreciated. The link to this market report will also be in the description if you want to read it for yourself or if you want to look at some of the older reports, because they are also available on this website. So let's get it started. Here at the very top they have these notes. Ripple sells $163 million in XRP amidst rising volatility and volume in Q3 of 2018. Ripple sales accounted for 0.43% of global XRP volume. 3 billion XRP released out of cryptographic escrow, 2.6 billion XRP returned to escrow, and Wall Street firms take early steps towards providing institutional custody of digital assets. Why all of this is interesting, we will see when we're reading through it. Here you see the sales summary, and the first interesting part here is that institutional direct sales, so over-the-counter sales that we do not see on, say, CoinMarketCap, have gone up from 16.87 million in the second quarter of this year to 98 million in the third quarter. Just keep that in mind for a moment. It went up by... Sorry, I don't know why I'm coughing so much. It went up by what, 400 something percent? From one quarter to the next. That is insane, and that is something we don't see if we're not looking at these reports. This is not something we can see just by watching the volume from exchanges. So that is a huge movement here. And that, of course, is being sold to financial institutions, to large companies, to banks. That means the institutional interest in XRP has gone up at least fourfold just from the second to the third quarter of 2018. And now we are, of course, already well into the fourth quarter, and this almost certainly has continued. But continuing on here. In Q3 of 2018, Ripple sold 65.27 million worth of XRP programmatically. This represents 0.172% of the total XRP volume traded globally in the third quarter. In addition, XRP2 LLC, a Ripple subsidiary that is a registered and licensed money service business, sold $98.06 million worth of XRP in institutional direct sales. In total, the company sold $163.33 million worth of XRP in Q3. Just keep in mind, that is a really high number. And the XRP that Ripple is selling directly, that is not being sold to day traders. So like it might look like it's a small part of it being like 0.5% of the total volume traded globally. That might seem like a small number, but you have to take into account that when you see the actual volume on CoinMarketCap or other websites like that, a lot of that is people day trading, is people speculating. That is a lot of the volume. But these 163 million worth of XRP that they sold off in Q3, those are primarily going to institutional investors who want to get into XRP. This isn't day trading. Like these are over-the-counter sales. These aren't being made to flood the market. These are being locked away somewhere as an investment or for use through Ripple's technologies. This means so much. This is so much institutional money flowing into XRP. And just in 3 months. XRP volatility was light throughout most of the quarter, then jumped in the last 2 weeks of the quarter as the price also increased. Well, this is pretty obvious. In quarter 4 of 2017, Ripple locked up 55 billion XRP in a cryptographically secured escrow account. Ripple created the lockup to create certainty of XRP supply at any given time. Due to that lockup, Ripple has access to only 13% of the total XRP in circulation. Ripple sales were a tiny fraction of that amount. Now this, a lot of people have the misconception that because technically Ripple the company owns a large number of XRP, because they own, I believe it's about 60 billion in total, that Ripple's technologies, that the XRP blockchain is centralized. But in reality, the large majority of that is locked up in an escrow account, and only 1 billion a month is being released from that. So even if Ripple wanted to flood the market, I've seen people accuse Ripple of running a scam here with XRP because they hold so much of it. I've seen people imply that Ripple are just planning to flood the market and pretty much burn down everything, which of course is utterly ridiculous, because why would you be engaging in these partnerships with hundreds of banks? Why would you be building up all this technology if you just wanted to flood the market and make billions by selling off all your tokens? They could already they could have done that long ago if they wanted to do something in that direction. But aside from it just simply being an idiotic idea, Ripple is clearly not running a scam here. They are $20 billion backed company. Aside from just that that's just being ridiculous, so much of it is locked up in escrow that they simply couldn't. They couldn't flood the market like that. They could probably crash the price a bit. Absolutely. If 13% of the total XRP supply suddenly appeared on the market and was being sold off, that would absolutely crash the market. But they can't completely burn everything down and destroy it, and then they would still have 55 billion XRP sitting around in an escrow account that would then be worthless because they aren't able to access it. So what would be the point in crashing the price? Just in general, there's a lot of misinformation going around Ripple and around XRP. A lot of people really hate the company and the project, and I'm sure some people have some legitimate points, have some legitimate arguments and criticisms, but a lot of it is fear-mongering and deliberate misinformation and essentially fake news. And one part of what I'm trying to do with this channel is to kind of shed a light on some of these misinformation. Now, gotta say here, I hold XRP, but I am not involved in any way with Ripple the company or with any of the tech projects associated with Ripple. I'm just doing this because I don't like seeing misinformation spread. Even when I'm talking about a token or a project I don't support, if I make a mistake, please point it out to me, and I want to put out an apology. I want to correct myself the next opportunity I have, because I think we need to be very careful, especially in this age of fake news, to not spread fake information, misleading information. I try very hard to be fair about everything I'm talking about here, so that is kind of a part of the aim of this channel. So I felt the need to point it out in particular here, talking about all the XRP in escrow. So whatever you have heard about Ripple's technology, their blockchain being overly centralized, first of all, centralization isn't a yes or no thing. That exists on a scale, and there are some tokens where some popular tokens and coins, where you can make a very good argument that they're significantly more centralized than XRP is. The primary example being Bitcoin, where just, I believe it's 4 accounts hold over 50% of all the Bitcoin, and those are not in escrow. Those accounts can flood the market. Those accounts can carry out a 51% attack if they want to. And other projects as well. So first of all, it doesn't exist on a scale. Secondly, other ones are more centralized, pretty much any way you look at it. So whenever somebody tells you XRP is a scam, Ripple is centralizing their blockchain, That is simply not true, just mathematically. And they are definitely more centralized than some other coins are, definitely. But they are not by a long shot the most centralized of the major cryptocurrencies. And it's very telling that people give Ripple, give XRP so much, I don't want to swear here, so much manure that they don't give other coins, other tokens that are equally, if not more centralized. That is very telling to me. So the next time someone tells you that kind of stuff, you know that is nonsense. That is just nonsense. In Q3 of 2018, 3 billion XRP was again released out of escrow, 1 billion each month. 2.6 billion XRP was subsequently put into new escrow contracts. So here we see 1 billion is coming out every month. They can't just take it all out at the same time. And they have made a commitment to put most of that back and only keep what they're immediately using for some kind of purpose. The remaining 400 million XRP not returned to escrow is being used in a variety of ways to help support the XRP ecosystem. The total market cap of digital assets fell again in the third quarter, declining 12%. Most of the major assets, including XRP, traded in a continued tight correlation, though XRP price rallied at quarter end. We can see that beautifully here, going up instead of down. Industry activity continued its growth with a myriad of announcements, e.g. Coil began testing its web monetization product with more than 200 websites enabling XRP payments, although 3 stood out in Q3. If you don't know what Coil is a company founded by some former Ripple people that is still working closely with Ripple that wants to find a new way to support content creators on the internet, that wants to create a world where instead of having ads on the internet, instead of being tracked and your information being stored and used for ads, that pretty much a culture of sponsorship where you pay a certain amount in cryptocurrency every month, and that is being distributed to your favorite websites based on how much time you spend on those websites. That's it pretty much. It's more complicated than that, but that's pretty much what Coil is doing. It's a project that I personally am rather fond of. Q3 saw a pullback in initial coin offering issuances on the heels of a report by ICO Rating that said 55% of initial coin offerings failed to complete their crowdfunding in the second quarter. In addition, US regulators took a number of actions throughout the quarter in an effort to support healthy markets. ICO promoters were a particular target. On September 11th, the SEC filed its first case arguing that an unregistered broker-dealer sold digital tokens. La Jolla, I probably mispronounced that as well, California-based crypto asset management raised $3.6 million from 44 investors in 15 states last year and had $37 million under management by year end. The firm was censored and agreed to pay a $200,000 penalty, which is a lot of money, but if you have $37 million under your management, that is not that much. In its first cryptocurrency action, Finra charged a Massachusetts man who announced Hempcoin to induce investments into his worthless company Rocky Mountain Air. Finra exerted jurisdiction, citing their previous registration as a broker-dealer. The Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, rejected a Bitcoin ETF application by Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss. A substantial majority of Bitcoin trading occurs on unregulated venues overseas that are relatively new and that generally appear to trade only digital assets, the SEC said in a lengthy filing. Further, the SEC found that Bitcoin is not demonstrably resistant to manipulation. Keep in mind here that the SEC has announced that they are reviewing those decisions, and by early next month we should have word on that. In a closely watched decision in September, a federal judge in Boston ruled that the Commodity Futures Trading Commission sufficiently alleged that a virtual currency named MyBitcoin met the definition of a commodity and fell under the CFTC's purview. In the final days of the quarter, South Korean exchanges emerged as some of the leading trading venues for digital assets. Also of note is the country of Malta. For more than 2/3 of the quarter, overall global digital asset trading was led by exchanges based in Malta. Over the last 6 months, Malta has proposed a number of rules that create a clear legal framework for the trading of digital assets. Additionally, Malta lets international companies pay as little as 5% in corporate taxes. Prime Minister Dr. Joseph Muscat has called cryptocurrencies the inevitable future of money. This has led to a number of large crypto firms, including Binance and OKAX Technology, moving their operations to the island. Once again, I'm so sorry for clearing my throat and coughing all the time. Before I made the video, I was perfectly fine. I probably still get nervous even after almost 100 videos. And the final paragraph here. Big institutional firms continue moving towards backing crypto trading, but have yet to launch offerings into the market. In August, Bloomberg News reported that Goldman Sachs Group was considering a plan to offer custody for crypto funds, citing people with knowledge of the matter. In the second quarter, Nomura Holdings announced a custody consortium called Komainu, and Bank of New York Mellon, JP Morgan Chase and Northern Trust are all reportedly exploring or already working on crypto custody services. Announcements of this sort continued in Q3, but the efforts have yet to wield widespread institutional trading. This has allowed emerging companies to build a handful of large business trading digital assets. Traditional Wall Street firms are waiting in the wings. So what is our primary takeaway here? Of course, first of all, it is very, very important to state here that Ripple is doing an admirable job at transparency by releasing these quarterly reports. Now, reports like this are pretty much a given in traditional finance, in the stock markets. Pretty much any company that has a publicly traded stock will release these. I think in some countries you actually legally have to release them. But within the cryptocurrency world, this is a rarity. This is something special in the cryptocurrency world, and especially for a world that talks about transparency, decentralization, making money accessible for the world so much, you'd think everyone would be doing this, but no, Ripple actually stands out here, is one of the few companies that is this transparent, just publishing freely their reports and their numbers most importantly. Now, the most important trend here is absolutely the increase in institutional direct sales, which we were previously unable to see. And we will have to wait until probably the end of January of next year to find out if this continued in Q4. But my bet is on that this trend continued, just jumping to 5 times what it was the quarter before. Now, this could mean many things. We obviously don't know who these sales were to, but these sales pretty much must have gone to banks, to fintech companies, to financial actors in some big way. $100 million worth, that is a lot, even if it doesn't sound like that much when we're thinking about the total market cap of these coins. That is still a lot of money. And that means so many big companies, so many institutional companies are getting into it. It is also unclear how much of this is people who are just wishing to invest in the XRP token, and how many are buying this as part of a partnership agreement. It is very much possible that when Ripple goes into a partnership with a bank or with a liquidity provider, with a payment channel, it is very much possible that they have a contract that makes the other party buy a certain amount of XRP to have their own tokens. But we don't know that kind of stuff. What we do know is there is certainly a lot of newfound institutional interest in XRP that wasn't there before. And if you think there are big things to come for XRP in the future, and I certainly think so, I think XRapid in particular is going to do a lot. It was just started earlier this month with 3 companies using it right now. I think in the coming months and years we will see a lot more banks slowly but surely test it out. You have to keep in mind, for anything that happens in the financial world, especially anything involving banks, they have a responsibility to the people invested with them to be very careful with what they're doing. They don't always hold up that end of the bargain, but they're supposed to have that responsibility. So a lot of people were disappointed when XRapid went live, and it wasn't instantly 100 major banks. It was with 3 banks. I think that is how it has to happen. Because big banks, when they want to start using a new technology like this to send all their money for international transfers through it, they need to know that it works. They need to be absolutely 100% certain that everything is legit. So what I think is happening is larger banks are looking and waiting to see how it works out for these smaller banks who are using it on individual payment corridors for now. And these smaller banks are waiting to see how these individual payment corridors work. And if after a couple months everything is working perfectly, if their savings are as high as they expect them to be, if there's no major technical issues, if everything is more efficient and faster and more secure, like how it is hopefully going to be because that is the whole appeal of their technology, that means these small banks who are already using it for individual payment corridors will start using it for more payment corridors. That means larger banks who are not using it yet will see the success of these smaller banks and start using it. That means the parent companies of these banks. We have seen, in some cases, we have seen large banks not touch Ripple's technologies, but their affiliates, their smaller banks owned by them are testing it. That often looks like these bigger banks are just waiting to test it out on a smaller scale, and if it works, they will also use it. We will see a lot happening here, but what we need is for XRP to run perfectly for a couple months, maybe even a couple years. And we will slowly but surely see more and more money flowing through it, more and more banks partnering with Ripple, and then we will see more use of it. And seeing this much more institutional interest in the XRP token is a good sign that there might be a lot more banks currently considering using XRP that haven't publicly announced anything yet. I remember I read an interview the other day as well with someone, I forgot who exactly it was with with one of the higher ups in Ripple, who was also saying that they are in talks with a lot of banks. I think they said dozens of banks right now who are considering starting to use XRP in the near future and just haven't finalized or announced their plans yet. So there's a lot happening, and this report gives us a small but important insight into what is going on behind the scenes. What we can't really see is happening, but we can make reasonable assessments based on it. And what I take away from this is that the future for Ripple and for XRP is incredibly bright. Institutional interest rising like this, with XRP just having launched, a lot of banks, a lot of companies are getting into this. They're trying to get into it while it still hasn't exploded yet. And I think with that, I'm gonna end this video. If I missed anything here that I should have talked about, let me know in the comments, absolutely. But I think I hit all the important points here. It's a very exciting time to be a supporter of the XRP token and of Ripple as a company, and they seem to be doing a spectacular job at almost everything, at their transparency, at their work with regulators, at their work with banks and with fintech companies. They're just doing a wonderful job. Thank you, Ripple. You're doing spectacularly well right now. I'm gonna end this video here. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe to get more of these. If you want to support the channel, there's a million ways to do that in the description, and anything is appreciated. The link to this article also in the description, as well as my social media links and an email address where you can ask questions that I may include in a question and answer video at some point. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys with a regular news update video that isn't just about Ripple and XRP later today.